On the night of July 18th, 2023, the Baltimore County Fire Department responded to a commercial building fire. During that incident, one of our members declared a mayday. Over the 6 months that followed, a formal after-action review was completed. This presentation is designed to immerse the viewer into the specific details of that incident.
Baltimore County 911, what's the address of the emergency?
Oh, hey, it's
Do you know the address there?
I don't. It's on Reisterstown Road.
Do you see any numbers on the buildings?
I don't. And we're actually leaving right now, but Advanced Auto Part is on fire. So I got out of Walgreens, and everything's closed. Everything's really dark because they're the only store that closed at 10. And Advanced Auto Part has like a lot of smoke coming out of it, and you can see that there's a fire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Baltimore County 911, what is the address of the emergency?
Yeah, there's a fire looking like it's in the Advanced Auto Parts in the Reisterstown Plaza, because the whole building is, and inside the store, smoke coming up on there, because there's a fire inside there.
Baltimore County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
I'm not sure what the address is, but I'm over here at Walgreens by Advanced Auto Parts, and I'm pretty sure it's on fire.
Do you know what road Walgreens is on?
I'm not sure.
Is it in the Reisterstown area?
Yes, Reisterstown.
Okay, I do have a Walgreens on Reisterstown Road in Reisterstown. Does that sound right?
Yes.
And you said you think the Walgreens is on fire?
No, the Advanced Auto Parts.
Okay.
ADO Battalion Chief 2, Advanced Auto Parts 56-4.
Copy, thanks.
It's going to be multiple calls. They got to get these EMS calls out first.
Engine 56 is on 2211. Dispatcher yet?
Engine 56, I'm on the TAC channel. I got you. You're requesting a work.
That's correct. I have a one-story commercial building. We laid a line out from Reisterstown Road. We're on side alpha. It's approximately 200 by 400 building. I have significant smoke. We're going to go ahead and force the door. We're stretching a line.
Verify box 56-4, Reisterstown Road and East Cherry Hill Road. Mayday. Dispatch, it's a mayday. Hold all air.
Hi, my name is Captain Joshua Levin from the Baltimore County Fire Department, Station 19, Garrison. On July 18th, I responded on Engine 19 to the Advanced Auto Parts fire in Reisterstown.
And I'm Lieutenant Mike Dennis from the Baltimore County Fire Department. I'm assigned to Station 18, Burnbrook Hook. That evening, I was assigned to Truck 18 on C shift, working an overtime shift. And over the next few hours, you're going to see the story of the mayday that was called that evening.
I'm Ken Hughes, a Deputy Chief in the Baltimore County Fire Department, assigned to field operations, currently assigned to Team B, which is Bravo and Echo shift.
Tim Roskowski, I'm the Bureau Chief of Health and Safety for the Baltimore County Fire Department.
Scott Everett, Bureau Chief of Training and Education for the Baltimore County Fire Department.
The three of us had the opportunity to work together as part of the after-action review team of the Advanced Auto Parts fire that took place in 2023. We wanted to just spend a couple of minutes talking about the layout of the report and briefly discuss the methodology, what information we had available, and specifically talk about some of the findings that we came to in terms of conclusions. We also want to start by thanking those who have helped us out throughout the course of this particular project, and absolutely send our appreciation to those who were so courageous to tell us their story, unedited, factual, and truthful, to be part of the bigger picture of moving the Baltimore County Fire Department to the next level. From the time that Engine 56 arrived on this incident to the time that the Mayday was cleared was approximately 30 minutes, and we are certain that those 30 minutes are going to change the next 30 years of our fire department.
For those viewers not familiar with our department, here's a quick overview of its size and coverage area. Baltimore County, which is a separate jurisdiction surrounding Baltimore City, is the largest jurisdiction in the Baltimore metro area. It's approximately 600 square miles of both suburban and rural areas with over 200 miles of shoreline. Our fire department is made up of a combination of 54 volunteer and career stations serving a population of over 850,000 residents and visitors. The department is staffed by over 1,000 paid responders who work alongside another 2,000 volunteer personnel to respond to over 150,000 calls a year. The fire department is organized into 3 battalion coverage areas that are each supervised by a chief officer. Each of those 3 chiefs is responsible for a 218 square mile response area and oversight of 18 stations. The after-action review team appointed by Fire Chief Runn include Deputy Chief Ken Hughes, the chair, Deputy Chief Tom Ramey, Bureau Chief Scott Ebert, Bureau Chief Tim Roskowski, Bureau Chief Gretchen Yingling, Captain Paul Fanouche, EMS Captain Lenny Stewart, IAFF 1311 President John Sabiga, BCVFA Vice President of Operations Kevin Roberts, Lansdowne Volunteer Fire Company Chief Doug Brinkley, Fire Specialist William White from Safety, Detective Sergeant Andy Vaquero from the Police, Dana Carew-Sadler from the 911 Center, Fire Chief Matt Tobia from the Harrisonburg Fire Department, Deputy Chief Billy Goldfeder from the Loveland Sims Fire Department, Dan Madrikowski from UL, Brandon Kinna from Mosh, and Claude Van Pelt from Mosh.
And the team would like to recognize the following individuals for their contributions to this after-action review. Fire Captain Andrew Laird for his efforts with this presentation, Andrew Starnes from Insight Fire Training for technical expertise with the TIC footage, Deputy Assistant Chief Frank Lieb, Captain Andrew Ruiz, and EVD Kyle Stevens, who served as technical reviewers of the report, the entire management team of Advanced Auto Parts for their assistance with clarifying building construction and layout, Fire Captain Kurt Holloway and Fire Captain Steve Stelmack for their efforts to coordinate the after-action review implementation team, Andy Mullery from the Baltimore County Public Library, and finally to all members who responded to the 56-4 firebox.
After the incident, Fire Chief Joanne Runn assembled a team of individuals to look at this particular incident and to scrutinize it, but to scrutinize it with the availability of hindsight. The hindsight afforded us the options to look at helmet camera footage, to look at video footage, to listen to audio multiple times. So the after-action review team, using that hindsight, were able to assemble the sequence of events and brainstorm recommendations and, again, create the roadmap for the next 30 years for our fire department. We do recognize, and we want to make sure that it's very, very clear, that those individuals who operated on the incident, that happened very, very quickly in a compressed time. And we want to recognize that and, again, just reinforce the fact that hindsight was on our side in this particular situation and recognize that we're not trying to identify things that went wrong. We just want to look at the facts. From those facts, develop some recommendations, and those recommendations are laid in this report. The team met a number of times, and we wish to express our gratitude to everybody in the Baltimore County Fire Department who has patiently waited for the distribution of this report. We basically dissected this incident in 4 chunks. The first chunk was from the 911 connect time up to the dispatch. Once the dispatch time occurred and the arrival of engine 56 up to the Mayday, that was the second chunk. Then we took a lot of time to look at the Mayday sequence itself, and then the following fireground activities once the Mayday was cleared.
Over the 6-month investigation, members of the committee reviewed information from a variety of sources, including over 40 recorded interviews, plus written statements from members who responded on the call. Additionally, they reviewed departmental SOPs, general orders, and safety bulletins, as well as photographs and videos of the scene taken by personnel and bystanders. The committee also reviewed recorded audio that you heard earlier of the 911 calls and dispatch recordings of all the talk groups that were used. The committee also reviewed floor plans of the structure that were obtained from Advanced Auto Parts, as well as documentation from the police, fire, and arson team on the origin and cause investigation. Also reviewed were fire inspection and permitting records on file. Also reviewed by the committee are video and audio recordings captured on thermal imaging cameras that were in use at the scene, departmental staffing records, official ENFRS incident reports completed by responding units, a side-by-side comparison of the CAD software in use at the time as well as the CAD software currently in use, SCBA records and accountability records from the breathing apparatus used by responding units, and lastly, personal protective equipment inspection records worn by those who responded. Due to time constraints and the familiarity of most viewers with our department, some content was not included in this presentation, but can be found in the written report document. That content includes a letter from Fire Chief Rund, an executive summary of the report, an overview of the Baltimore County Fire Department, certain terminology and reference material, additional incident and dispatch information, staffing configurations, weather data, additional building construction and fire code details, a detailed sequence of the fireground operations, a full transcription of radio transmissions, turnout gear and SCBA data and inspection records, and training records. So we're going to take a few minutes to review some of the information about the 911 calls that were received and how they were dispatched. At 21:34, the first of the 3 911 calls you heard earlier was received by the dispatch center. Approximately 2 minutes later, the administrative duty officer at dispatch provided a pre-alert notification to the acting battalion chief on the west side of the county. In between that pre-alert and the dispatch of the call, multiple other calls were either pending or being dispatched in our system. During that time, multiple units from within the battalion, including the first arriving engine, Engine 56, heard that pre-alert notification and began heading towards the location of the incident. At 21:40, which is about 6 minutes after the first 911 call was received, Engine 56 arrived on scene and requested a working fire assignment. And then at 21:44, that was the first initial dispatch of this call over the main talk group, which was close to 10 minutes after the first 911 call and 4 minutes after Engine 56 arrived on the scene. At the time of the incident, there was an early dispatch protocol being used that said that all medical calls, regardless of the situation, were to be dispatched before any incidents related to only property. So, for example, a building fire without reported rescue, such as this call, would have been fairly low on the priority order list over a sick person. As of November 2023, the Baltimore County 911 Center transitioned to a new dispatching system that eliminated this policy.
I'm Sergeant Andrew Becerra with the Baltimore County Police Department Fire and Explosion Investigations Team. On the night of July 18th, I responded as the primary supervisor and the backup arson investigator to the Advanced Auto Parts, and we were dispatched on the third alarm assignment. In the after-action review team, I was a part of the interview board where we interviewed approximately 40 firefighters and other first responders that were assigned to the incident on that evening. The Advanced Auto Parts building on Reisterstown Road had changed occupancy several times, and we learned this through the cooperation we received with Advanced Auto Parts. They were very easy for us to deal with. We learned that this was one of their larger stores in their chain because they had outfitted the store to adapt to the building size. The first floor of the building, when you're facing Alpha, that is the main store part of the building. That is where the shelving units are, where general customers will come in and purchase their items and take them right to the registers. It is behind the registers where you have a stock area, and to the right of the stock area you see warehousing. In one particular part of the warehouse was a break room, and in the rear warehouse, which we defined as origin, was a larger warehouse. The bottom floor was contained within cinder block walls, was additional storage where the origin was, and just above it was a office area that was built and supported above the stock room. We identified the origin based on the video and also based on the damage that we were able to view during excavation the following day as the work area to the rear of the staircase. We believe that the fire grew in intensity as it started on the work table and extended through the staircase to the second floor area, which was defined as office space. As the business closed that evening, we have video footage of the suspect returning quickly to the rear stock room, and this is approximately 24 minutes before Engine 56's arrival at the scene. And he goes back to the area of origin, quickly checks, and then runs back out of the stock room. Within a few minutes, as the lights are turned off in the business, the camera goes into a night shot mode, at which time you begin to see fire trickling to the Charlie and Delta quadrant. The fire begins to create heavy smoke conditions that show up on the video, but you also see fire being entrained on the floor before the smoke completely occludes the camera.
So we've got a couple things to show you on this slide related to apparatus positioning and access to this structure. In the video seen on the left side, taken by the Baltimore County Police helicopter after this building was demolished, you can see that there's very limited access for apparatus on the Delta and Charlie sides. The Charlie side specifically is made up of mostly residential structures as well as trees, vegetation, and power lines. And as you can see on the graphic depicted on the right side, you have Engine 56 positioned on the Alpha side with Truck 18 and some other units, Truck 404, which was one of the only units able to make access to the Charlie side, and then Engine 413, the second arriving engine that positioned on the hydrant on the Delta side. Also to note, on the Delta side of this building previously was a hibachi grill restaurant that was demolished before this incident. The last thing to mention in this slide specifically is the large parking lot that's going to be mentioned later on in a finding related to the staging area that was present and the need to stage apparatus further away from the scene.
So on the night of the fire, we had a what's called a pre-alert on our administrative duty officer channel. They called the chief, said there was a fire at Advanced Auto Parts 56-4 box. They were receiving multiple calls. So at that time, Truck 18 and Engine 18, we proceeded to get on the equipment, and we went non-emergency heading that direction because they haven't alerted it as of that yet, as of that moment. We did not hear the firebox get alerted. It was numerous other medical calls getting alerted at the time. So we were thinking, what's going on? Then we heard Engine 56 check up on the channel, our talk group channel 22, which is our fireground channel, and we heard them ask for a working fire assignment. So we, at that point, turned the lights on and headed that way, and then they put the firebox out.
We did not hear the pre-alert. Engine 19 was not monitoring that talk group at the time, so we didn't get alerted until the actual call was alerted, which resulted in us arriving in a different order than we normally would have. En route to the call, we were already hearing a lot of talk group chatter that suggested people were there and it was already a working fire. So we knew that it was definitely going to be a fire. And in my mind, I was thinking about all the hazards of a building with that type, and that I had been in that building many times.
You'll now see approximately 1 minute of video captured by a helmet camera worn by the driver of Engine 56. Of note in this video are the smoke conditions on arrival and the interface of the officer of Engine 56 with the officer of the second arriving engine, Engine 413, as they proceed to the Charlie side.
Hey, I'll put 413 on this second line. I want it on side Charlie. I got you. Go to side Charlie. Go back here and tell me what you got first. Side Charlie. Listen, be very careful opening the door. I want to open it slowly just to see if we can get something going on. You might need, you got to act. You guys are going to have to probably force that door. Okay. Call me if you need the 500, I'll bring it. What do you got?
I want to see, I hate the bill.
Initial crews deployed an 1 3/4 line into the front door of this business. Subsequently, a 2.5 hose line was deployed, but it doesn't go inside. It's later deployed to the Charlie side after it's extended, as it doesn't have enough reach to make it there.
Command for 413. Command. We're trying to make a push, and these Charlies out the corner. We're burning up. We had to back out. We're flowing through here. We got tornado and smoke pumping out of Charlie right now.
413 making a push, backing out too hot. Copy that. You need the roof opened up?
Yeah. It looks like the fire is all on. I'm not sure if there's an egg space or a conk maybe, but we got fire above.
We will now hear from Dan Madrikowski from the UL Fire Safety Research Institute as he discusses fire growth and considerations.
When the door to the Advanced Auto Parts store was open, smoke flowed out. This was an indication of a ventilation-limited fire condition. The fire in the store was actually isolated by brick walls. This made locating the fire challenging, and it also required the smoke to find alternate paths of travel through penetrations in the walls, ventilation systems, and then finally out through the doors on the first floor, resulting in smoke that was cool and had changed color. As the fire progressed, a crew opened up the upstairs door on side C, resulting in a flow path through the building where the intake was from the front door and a unidirectional exhaust came out of the door on side C. You can see that in the video here and the photograph on the slide. This flow path played a significant role in the events. Most of the members operating that went in through the front door were operating in the intake portion of the flow path. This resulted in them operating in a cool environment. However, due to the fact that this was an auto parts store and we had a vent-limited fire, between the fuels that are in the auto parts store, such as fuels, oil, batteries, things of that nature, the smoke was very, very sooty to start with. Underventilating the fire made that soot condition and that high smoke condition, lack of visibility, even worse. So the visibility here was going to be bad no matter what, but all these other factors compounded it. The fact they were working on the intake side resulted in cool air, which allowed them to have the time that was needed to make the rescue and bring the members out. Folks that tried to make entry on the rear were exposed to high heat conditions. They were forced out in a way that was fortunate. Had anybody been caught between where the fire was in that exhaust portion of the flow path and where the fire wanted to go, certainly injuries or perhaps worse could have occurred. Fighting the fire from the rear and flowing water in the door would have been ineffective because they still couldn't get to the seat of the fire, which was on the floor below. Fortunately, no other ventilation was made. There were requests to break the windows on the front. That would have increased the fire development. Those requests were told, we're not breaking the windows, so ventilation was limited. That was a very good move. There was a request to vent the roof. Had that ventilation continued, that would have made the fire grow as well. Again, when you have a vent-limited fire and no effective water on the fire, that is not the time to add extra ventilation. Any additional oxygen brought into that space will make the heat release rate and the hazard of the fire increase. Here you could see images that were taken by a thermal imaging camera on side alpha of the auto parts store. What you can notice is that the glass had been heated to the point where the thermal imager picks up the heat flux that had transferred through the glass to see that you've got a hot gas layer. Again, this is giving you a story about there is energy in the building. You can see the thermal layering. This fire is well advanced, ventilation limited, and the most important thing here is to control ventilation until you can get effective water on the fire, or until your search is completed and there's a decision to go defensive. But again, there's information from both the smoke and the thermal imaging to tell you how to develop your instant action plan. The diagram on this slide shows the front door being a unidirectional intake, fresh air entering through the showroom of the store, then moving into the warehouse portion of the store and out through the second floor. We could see that where the fire was located in the CD corner is where the flow path turns red, basically turning into a unidirectional exhaust flow that started on the first floor, went up the stairs, and then out through the office portion of the building, exiting the side Charlie door. Fortunately, most of the members involved in this incident were on the intake part of the flow path. Operating on the intake portion of the flow path gives you the best opportunity for search, rescue, finding the fire, and suppression. Operating in the exhaust portion of a flow path is a high-risk exercise, and also typically ineffective. Trying to suppress the fire by flowing water and advancing into the exhaust portion of the flow path, in this case, would not have worked. The seat of the fire was on the first floor, making entry through the second floor and trying to advance water to the seat of the fire would have been ineffective. As you can see in the video, the fire coming out of side Charlie was continuous, and the only time when they flowed water on that fire and obstructed the vent was a time when, instead of having full intake on side A, they had some smoke back up and exit out of side A. So again, the flow path that was set up here was fortunate. It was also fortunate that additional ventilation did not occur, as that would have changed the flow path and potentially led to fire growth and fire spread through other areas of the store.
We did return to Advanced Auto several times with the permission of Advanced Auto staff to bring firefighters back in to help them identify where they were during the Mayday sequence and how quickly they were able to define a route out of the building. The first time we were there, we were with Lieutenant Dennis, and he was able to find his way back to where he believes he first was in the building. Lieutenant Dennis did not know that we had recovered his helmet shocks a far distance away during the time that he had been with Captain Levin, and we were able to kind of walk him back through that sequence. During the course of the next several weeks, we brought the other members of the Mayday team or Mayday rescue back into the building, and they helped us walk through how they got to the firefighters that declared the Mayday and how they successfully removed them from the building.
We will now hear from Lieutenant Dennis as he describes his initial movements. The graphic on the screen will also animate a simulation of those movements.
When we arrived on truck 18, we arrived on the Alpha side. I was met by the FADO off of engine 56, Jimmy Carter. He advised me that the smoke was cool. It wasn't really had a lot of velocity behind it, but they couldn't tell where the fire was at that point, and just kind of keep my heads up. As I walked towards the building, you could see the smoke didn't have a whole lot of velocity. I walked about 10 feet in to see if I could feel any heat, did not. I came back out to talk to my stepman. He advised me he'd be coming with me. I grabbed the thermal imager from him and we proceeded to go in. I started hooking ceilings, going down along Alpha side to the Delta side, heading towards the back of the building, and that is when something fell and knocked me down, and I lost my bearings at that point. I had went in with engine 56. They were spraying water over my head, so I kind of knew where my bearings were. When I got back up, I no longer heard the water. It was very quiet, so I tried to get my bearings at me. I followed one of the shelving thinking I was on Delta side at that point. Obviously was not, and I ended up further into the building. After what felt like I was walking in circles is when I started calling for help. The conditions were, you couldn't see anything. I tried using the imager numerous times, lifting it up to my mask, couldn't see anything in the imager. Once in a blue moon, you'd get a clear visual of a shelf, but you couldn't tell where you were. And then all of a sudden, I had a light appear, and that was when Josh had found me. And we made a plan to follow and get back out. I felt like I was walking in circles because I kept passing the same carts in the aisles. So I finally, my air, I noticed one of the lights diminished, so I knew I was getting low on air. So I started calling dispatch urgent. I called a few times with no response. Other units had called and got answered, so I finally called dispatch when I got an open chance. They answered me. I believe after listening to the audio, my message was broken, so that's when I called Maydays when they responded to me the second time. At that point, I knelt on the floor to kind of conserve air and stay where I was. There was no heat, so I felt somewhat safe, and was just praying someone came and found me. My air started to get low. I noticed the light go out, so I knew I was getting about half, if not under half. So I was, before I got in there too far and then ran out of air, I figured call for help early. That way I could be found and go home. So I didn't call the Mayday right away because I didn't feel like I was in immediate danger. So I kind of reverted to military training when I stay calm and call for help. When I wasn't getting help immediately, I was getting kind of disregarded. It's when I called the Mayday because I knew that would definitely get attention. We learned through safety and survival years ago from Chief Kimball. If you need to conserve air, just take a knee and just control your breathing. So that's what I did. Try to make it last as long as I could.
We will now see audio and video recorded by the thermal imaging camera that Mike was carrying as he attempted to convey his Mayday message. Take a note on how many times his transmissions were rejected because he did not have priority on our radio system.
Charlie side, flowing into the structure from the stairwell landing. We're unable to make entry. Which I guess is the first floor, which is side delta of the bump out on the back side. 3/4 going in there, trying to find a season fire.
Man from truck 18 urgent.
Okay, I copy that. That's engine 18, Captain Brinkley, right?
Truck 18 to dispatch.
Truck 18.
Advise command. I'm stuck in the storeroom. I need some help out of here.
Can you repeat truck 18?
Mayday, mayday, mayday.
You will now hear the same message as it was recorded at the dispatch center. Note that his choppy radio transmissions indicate a potential bad facepiece seal or exhalation valve issue.
Command from 503.
Command from truck 18.
All right, I'm on Charlie. We got an 1 3/4 at the top step, Charlie side, flowing into the structure from the stairwell landing. We're unable to make entry. I got a crew going in, which I guess is the first floor, which is side delta of the bump out on the back side. 3/4 going in there, trying to find a season fire.
Okay, I copy that. That's engine 18, Captain Brinkley, right?
Truck 18 to dispatch. Truck 18. Can you repeat truck 18? Mayday, mayday,
Dispatch, it's a Mayday. Hold all air.
Attention all units, enforcement attack channel. All units hold your...
Dispatch, truck 18 had a Mayday. Dispatch, truck 18 had a Mayday. Go ahead, truck 18. Dispatch, give me the third alarm.
Okay, third alarm.
I'm stuck in the storeroom. I have a ceiling fall on me. And I can't find out.
Command, did you copy any of that? Okay, truck 18, can you repeat?
Rick to dispatch. They said they are up in a storeroom and the ceiling fell on them. Second level.
Okay, Command, you direct up in the storeroom, level 2, ceiling fell.
I copy that. Ritz deploying. Engine 19, Ritz deploying.
Engine 19,
Negative. They're on the first floor. I came in the open side. The ceiling on the shortfall on me. Now it's stuck on my way back out. Now it's stuck on my way back out.
Okay, truck 18, you said first floor alpha side now?
Alpha side is where I came in at, yes.
Okay, come here, Bob.
Command's correct on that. Ritz correct. Command from station. Stand by. Reese. You're Rit now. Reese is Rit. Go ahead, safety.
When Engine 19 arrived, we were assigned RIT. I stopped at the command post to make sure that they were aware of the order we arrived in. We maintained the assignment of RIT. I assigned my crew to go and retrieve the RIT equipment off of truck 18 because the engines don't carry it. They set out to do that. I told them to put it where to locate it when they were done, and I went to do a 360 of the building. With doing my 360 of the building, the smoke on the Delta side was banked so far down to the ground outside, it was really hard for me to even walk without bending down to look under the smoke. But it was still lazy, but dark and gray. I did make it around to the Delta side and the Charlie side. I saw fire coming out the back door on Charlie with crews trying to make an attack there. I was concerned about the amount of fire coming out that door and the safety of that crew, so I reported that back to command in person. So that's something they needed to keep an eye on. By the time I got back from all that, we had only moments before the Mayday was declared. I was standing next to Fado Carter, and I heard very clearly Truck 18 say something that sounded like urgent. Knowing Mike, we came in the academy together. I knew his voice. I knew who he was. And I could tell the inflection in his voice was a little different. I asked Fado Carter, did he just say urgent? And he said, I don't know. I'm not sure. A moment later, he said, Truck 18 to dispatch. And it was at that moment, by his tone and by the fact that he was calling dispatch and not command, that I knew he was probably in trouble. And we started moving towards getting the RIT team ready to deploy. I think I was really lucky that Mike gave a really clear description of where he thought he was, which I actually thought he had said he was on the second floor, and our radio communications were clear enough that he was able to correct that and say, no, I'm not on the second floor. I came in Alpha, I made a turn, this is where I am. Having been in the building a number of times, I pretty much felt like I knew exactly where he was. I told the team, let's go. We went to the front door, and I pretty much made a beeline right for where I thought Mike explained he was going to be. And in only 90 seconds or so, I was able to find him with the help of his pass device.
You'll now see a simulation of Captain Levin's movement as Lieutenant Dennis's tick camera captures the moments leading up to him being found.
Copy that. 19-3. Make an entry Alpha side.
So the store at one point had been a movie theater that was then converted into a number of different occupancies with expansions at different times. To make that more complicated, the shelving was set at an angle instead of straight back and forth. And then behind that was different sectioned off rooms. So in our case, we got off into one of those sectioned off rooms and weren't aware that we were not still in the room we started off in. I had been assigned to that area a bunch, and I had also shopped there and been in the back rooms a bunch. So I had a really good picture in my head of what I thought the store looked like. The heat conditions were not bad at all. That was the thing I think that helped us stay calm is I think, you know, we both have 20 years in. I think we have a pretty good idea of when we're in immediate danger and when we're danger adjacent. If it had been a lot hotter, I think we would have felt a lot more urgency. But even when I went to make this SCBA connection, I was able to take my gloves off and feel the temperature in the room was not immediately dangerous to us. The smoke, though, you couldn't see a darn thing. Every now and then you'd smack your face up against something and you'd be able to make out an object, but it was like going through a pea soup fog. When I met up with Mike, I had a pretty good idea of where I was, and my plan was to just turn around and go right back out. I figured 90 seconds in, 90 seconds out, this is a done deal. We're gonna be fine. We didn't even hook up air right away because I knew he had enough. As it turns out, something near maybe a 15-degree turn in direction is what led us completely in the other direction because of the layout of the building and the low visibility. And that extended our exit by 15 minutes or so. When Mike asked me, "You sure you know where you're going?" and I said, "I thought I did," I realized I didn't, and we were gonna need more help. So we got on the radio and we asked for them to send in some additional crew to help us. We also asked for them to sound the air horns, thinking that there was an engine parked right in front of the building, almost directly in line with the front door, and surely we'd be able to hear the sound of the air horn and just go straight toward it. When dispatch came back and said the air horns have been sounded, did you hear it?
Nothing.
I asked Mike, did he hear it? And he said no. I think then we thought we were definitely in a world of hurt there. That was probably the scariest moment until.
And that's about the same time we decided, I need. My vibro alert started to go off. I said, can we hook up the air? And that's when we started buddy breathing.
Yeah, I think we knew we weren't getting out in the next 90 seconds at that point. So we hooked up air, and the next thing, the other two guys came in, and they were able to help us find the way out.
Thought when Josh found me, I was like, all right, this is going, we'll get out of here. So Josh was like, are you okay? I said, I'm fine. I'm disoriented. Started following Josh. We crawled around for a few minutes, and I asked him, do you know where we're going? And I believe that's when he realized he was disoriented as well at that point, so we called for more help. When I first came in the department, buddy breathing was somewhat new. They just got these new bottles, and we practiced all the time in the basement. My captain at the time was Marty Monroe, and once a trick, we'd be downstairs in the basement buddy breathing. Over the years, it's just something we did a good bit with every officer I've had, and I felt like you've always stumbled around a little bit in the dark, you fumble around. That night it went flawlessly. We hooked right up, and there was no problems, in my opinion at least.
Yeah, I mean, we done it a lot in training, never in real life, but we were pretty calm. I said, hey, can you find your hose? He said, yeah. I found mine, he found his, and we clicked them together. Certainly an advantage that I was able to take my gloves off. We'd have been able to do it without that, but it definitely took a couple seconds off of it.
I think it was later on I was asked why I didn't push the emergency button on the radio, and that's when I kind of realized we've never done that. So yes, you know, second nature came up, and we just did what we were trained to do. So yeah, I'm definitely going to forward that on to the younger generation coming in to explain the importance of it.
Truck 18, did you copy that? Down your pass the place, down your pass the place, truck 18. Commander of your team, has a number from truck 18. Copy that, dispatch, you copy. Member from truck 18's been located. Member from truck 18 located. Alpha side, engine 19. Yeah, coming out now. Alright, we're connected, okay?
Water. Unit shut down the stall. Unit shut down the stall. Command, deploy the red team or redeployment. Red team deployed. That was engine 19. They located the down member. He's going to be running out of there. We got truck 18 going in to assist them to find their way out. And as soon as they find them, I got engine 3 ready to go in to assist. Copy that. And grab the people in front of you and have another red team on standby. Engine 19, can you advise?
The two guys that came to find us, they, I believe command kept calling them Truck 18, but it was actually two of my guys I normally work with on D shift. They were both working on different fire engines that night, but they came together, they came in and got Josh and I, and guided us out fairly quickly. We were in the back, as you'll see in the slides, all the way in the back of the building. They started screaming to shut the saws off because they couldn't hear anything because they were trying to open the roof. So once that was shut off, I sounded my pass device. I don't remember if you did or not. And Bobby Murray, who was one of the gentlemen that came in, walked right up to us. He asked if we were good. I held on to his shoulder and we kind of followed him out. I heard Fado Nichols on the way out call for Bobby. He was kind of the halfway point, and then we just went out as a crew pretty quickly back the same way they came. They followed their search patterns.
Once it was realized that Captain Levin and Lieutenant Dennis were both lost and disoriented, additional personnel were deployed into the structure. However, they exited the structure once the evacuation was ordered. Afterwards, additional personnel from Engine 18 and Engine 3, who happened to be co-workers of the Mayday lieutenant, deployed into the building to find him. They located him in the back corner of a storage area in close vicinity to a roll-up door.
We just hooked up buddy breathing.
Okay, copy that.
All units on Firebox
And I'm a little
56-4.
less than half.
If you are not involved in the rescue operation, switch to TAC 2-3. Switch to TAC 2-3 times 2211.
Copy team alert. Copy team alert.
Red team, down your path. Red team, down your path.
Lieutenant and team up. Can you hear it?
We got truck 18 following a hose line into you. Down your path so they can find you.
The path is sounding. Have them sound theirs as well.
Copy that. Everybody's been located. Do you need another air model? Engine 3's ready to come in.
No, they haven't been located. I said our pass alarm is going off. Have truck 18 sound there so we can come toward their direction.
Okay. Truck 18 down yours.
Let's get radio silence for a sec. Truck 18, let's turn on. We're gonna make a... Taylor Nichols, state of mind, your location.
Should be trouble, right?
Clear the air. Engine 18, portable forum. I make contact with the long therapist. And engine,
The most important thing is train, the way it's second nature. When I first came out of there, all I wanted was something to drink and to call my family. But after that, it's just make sure all my guys were good. Mental health has definitely been a big thing since then, making sure they're good. We all been looking out for each other. At my station, as well as other stations, we reach out to each other. But that's how I pretty much taken away from it.
I was never happier to see Bobby and Tommy in my whole life. Those guys are great firefighters, and I think that as much as people say I helped Mike, Bobby and Tommy helped me and Mike. It was really a big team effort. You know, I don't know that any of us would be here if we weren't the group of people that we are, with the time and the experience that we had and the calmness and the confidence that guys like Bobby and Tommy have, to just get in and do what needed to be done and get back out. When we came out, I know when they took our bottles off, there wasn't a whole lot of air left. And that was something that I kind of spent a bunch of time thinking about, all the what ifs, I guess, or what could have happened. When it come down to it, I'm glad I was able to be there and do my job that day. We learned a lot of lessons, both good and bad. You know, things we each could have done better, things other people could have done better. And I guess our biggest goal is to tell you everything so you can figure it out for yourselves and not have a problem like we did, or have a problem turn out as well as ours did. I didn't carry our thermal imager. My plan was to have the crew bring most of the equipment. That would have worked out great if the rest of the crew had ended up where I ended up, but I ended up with Mike by myself, so I didn't have any of that equipment. The two things I wish I had had more than anything would have been our thermal imager or a rope. You know, something as cheap and easy as a rope would have made this a 2-minute deal instead of a 20-minute deal.
Message to the younger generation is listen to the older guys. Yes, they're going to have a lot of bullshit under them, but especially around the kitchen table, listen and learn. If you have questions, ask. They may not always be willing to share knowledge, but if you ask them, I guarantee you they're going to get up and show you, because they don't want anything bad to happen to you.
I think the fact that every single one of us had 20 or more years absolutely affected the outcome of this. Not because of the years, but because of the people we learned from. And the people we learned from lived, eat, and breathed the fire department and instilled that in us. Not one time in that Mayday did I wonder how a game on my cell phone was going to help me get out of that building. Take the time you have, take the education of the people around you, and don't waste it, because when you're in a bad spot, that's the stuff that's going to get you out. You have to take it seriously. It's the obligation of the senior folks to engage with the junior folks and make them understand how important this all is, so that after we're all retired, they get to go home too.
I can't say it any better.
After all personnel were out and accounted for, defensive operations were initiated, and then approximately 1 hour after the initial 911 call, there was a collapse of the roof structure. Crews remained on scene into the afternoon of the following day, and we now have Sergeant Vaquero back to describe the rest of the criminal investigation.
The arson team maintained a presence through the entire event, clearing the scene on July 19th at approximately 1900 hours. During that particular time, we worked with other agencies such as Maryland State Fire Marshal in obtaining video footage from an aerial platform that we were able to use in our report to tell the story and describe the damage that firefighters faced during this fire. We were able to work with the insurance company who brought out an excavation crew who carefully and meticulously unfolded the building for us, identifying parts of origin by moving large pieces of roof girder to a safe location where we could inspect the heat damage to the girders themselves. And we were able to dig down within 6 inches of the bottom of the floor to find out where origin was, and took videos and photographs of origin to support the criminal investigation. The suspect was charged with first-degree arson and second-degree arson and was held without bail at the Baltimore County Detention Center. He was indicted on these charges. He pled guilty and received a 5-year prison term.
Part of this investigation included a full download and analysis of the SCBA packs for the members involved. As you can see in this first of 3 slides, the data shows that the starting pressure of Truck 18's officer pack was only about 4,000 psi. Also to note is that the buddy breathing connection was made approximately 20 minutes after Truck 18 began breathing air, and he only had 800 psi remaining in his cylinder. Also to note is that this pack entered a low battery mode approximately 1 minute before he exited the structure. And lastly, this SCBA was depressurized about 27 minutes after he entered the structure and began breathing air. On this slide, we'll look at the SCBA data from Engine 19's officer SCBA pack. As you can see here, the starting pressure was around 4,400 psi, and a buddy breathing connection was made with this cylinder around 3,100 psi, approximately 7.5 minutes after he entered the building and began breathing air. In the middle section of the graphic, you can see in the blue area where the breathing rate more than doubles after the connection is made. Also of note is that the total time that this cylinder was activated and pressurized was approximately 15 minutes, and that this cylinder was never noted as entering a manual pass alarm status. On this slide, we'll look at the data from both SCBA packs. In the top, you'll see Engine 19, and in the bottom, Truck 18. The orange shaded area on the right side of the graphic represents the time that they were breathing together. As you'll see here, the total time remaining between when that connection was made and the time to exit the building was less than 10 minutes. Additionally, at the rate that Truck 18 was breathing, as shown in the black dotted line on the bottom of the graphic, he would have been completely out of air in 5 to 7 minutes if the connection had not been made.
The other big piece of this report that we really want everybody to take a look at is the SOP compliance section. So we took the time to look at every tactical SOP and identify when it was last revised, and I think you'll agree that we have identified that several of them need revision. Some of them are non-existent. For example, we don't have a specific SOP in the Baltimore County Fire Department for operations on a commercial building fire. So those are things that we need to work on moving forward based upon what we've learned. But the SOP compliance section specifically identifies what the expected action was, what actually happened, and if in fact we're compliant. So to the members of the Baltimore County Fire Department, as you're looking through this, know that we recognize that we need to revise many of our SOPs. We need to make sure that access is granted to every member of the fire department. And then once we establish those rules of engagement, the next step, of course, is to make sure that we all comply with.
So we've covered a lot of information in the last hour. This slide serves as a stopping point if you'd like to pause before we continue for approximately another 45 minutes as we go over the 25 findings found in the written report.
There were 25 findings that we found, and we categorized them into 4 different categories. Immediate, which were color-coded red, those are things that were high-risk life safety issues that we know we need to address immediately. Following that was the orange category, or urgent. Those findings we decided should be addressed as soon as possible. And then concerning, or the yellow category. And the concerning findings were those that we know that we need to take care of, but aren't necessarily time-bound as critical as the other ones. The final findings were the strengths, the greens. We recognized that there were a lot of things that went well on this incident, and that was important to highlight. And there are some takeaways from each of those and some reinforcement findings from all of the strengths, but all of those 4 categories will help prioritize how we tackle those tasks as we turn this report over to the after-action review implementation team. As you read the report, whether you read it electronically or in paper copy, you can either scan or tap the QR codes that are within the document, and that will take you to the relevant policy or procedure or training associated with that finding. We wanted to leave the report for the findings and the meat of the report, as opposed to taking it up with our policies, so those can be referenced electronically.
Part of the investigation into this incident included a comparison and correlation of the findings to 6 line-of-duty death reports from our department and a nearby department, as well as 2 related studies of our department. These documents include the internal and NIOSH line-of-duty death report for firefighter Mark Falkenhan, the internal and NIOSH line-of-duty death report for firefighter Gene Kirschner, the NIOSH line-of-duty death report for fire apparatus driver-operator Bob Fogel, the Baltimore City Board of Inquiry report for the triple line-of-duty death on 205 South Stricker Street, the Baltimore County Efficiency Review conducted by Public Works LLC in 2022, and lastly, the third-party evaluation of our department conducted by Facets Consulting in 2022.
CARES is an acronym for the top 5 contributing causes to a firefighter fatality that is tagging the fire service at a pretty alarming clip. That CARES acronym, CAIRS, stands for, again, the NIOSH top 5. Firefighter fatalities are often secondary or contributed to as a result of a lack of communication, lack of accountability, failure to implement an effective incident management system, failure to conduct a risk assessment, and failure to comply with or have SOPs.
The next group of slides contains a brief introduction to the findings outlined in the report. Keep in mind that each finding in the report is 1 to 3 pages long and contains both a discussion section and comprehensive recommendations. The slides in this presentation quickly take a minute or two to just briefly touch on a few key points, including items that have either had progress during the report development, as well as immediate learning points for our personnel. They are indicated by the icons seen on this slide.
The thermal imager camera was an underutilized tool on this particular incident. Not only can the TIC help you locate victims, but it can be used to orient you and identify means of egress, and should also be used as a tool to conduct a preliminary risk assessment as you formulate your incident action plan. In addition to that, large area search rope was another underutilized tool on this incident. Both of those tools, the TIC and search rope, have not been an emphasis of training in the past several years for the Baltimore County Fire Department. In addition to these fireground tactics, while crews recognized that there was a need to deploy a 2.5-inch attack line to Site Charlie, they faced challenges because of the length of the stretch and the lack of the supply of the 2.5-inch line. So the committee makes the following recommendations. Number 1, we should conduct training on a repeated basis on how to make stretches longer, utilizing the tools available to get to the desired reach. In addition, it is the recommendation of the committee that the specifications group reevaluate the current configuration of hose loads as discussed in their report. In addition to that, we recommend continued training on the use of the thermal imager camera as well as wide area search, and we recommend that the fire department consider equipping each suppression company with a full complement of RIT equipment to include large area search rope. That makes it readily available on the fireground and also affords stations the opportunity to use it from a training perspective to build muscle memory. Finally, it is imperative, and we stress this recommendation, for every member to check out their SCBA on a daily basis to ensure that it is properly functional with a full cylinder and a battery level that is fully charged. This will ensure that if you're caught in that smoky environment with the use of those tools, the TIC and the search rope, that you have enough air to actually make a successful exit from the structure. On this particular incident, several small events compounded to result in a significant near miss. As you peel the onion layers away and start looking at the root cause of many of these issues, it does resonate that the lack of on-duty safety officers and the diminished chief officer level staff plays a role in that. From the safety officer perspective, for example, we're often taking the officer from the first arriving piece and redeploying them to the safety officer role. And in doing so, we are creating an accountability and crew integrity issue. From the chief officer perspective, not only is it important for a chief to arrive early on an incident, but it's important for the chief officers who are currently task saturated to be in the stations working with the men and women in the fire department to train together and build expectations for a tactically disciplined fireground. The committee recommends that the fire department take the steps recommended in these previously referenced reports to increase the number of chief officer positions and create on-duty safety officer positions so the cultivation of our current team can be built and integrated with working with the folks in the stations to build those expectations and ultimately work towards that tactically disciplined fireground. Freelancing is one of the most dangerous activities that can happen on the fireground. In our fire department, a culture has emerged that permits the act of freelancing without speed bumps or roadblocks to stop them. The roadblock to stop this particular freelancing is in the form of a tactically disciplined fireground. Whether crews enter a structure without the knowledge of the incident commander, or crews self-deploy as a result of a pre-alert, that culture nonetheless can lead to a potentially dangerous situation. In terms of recommendations, the committee stresses that it is the officer's responsibility at all levels to identify and eradicate behaviors that are contributing to freelancing. We all have a responsibility to hold ourselves accountable to meet the expectations and know what those expectations are to ensure firefighter safety. In terms of steps to improve the tactically disciplined fireground and therefore combat freelancing, the committee recommends that a post-incident quality assurance quality improvement tool be established so every incident with an ideal age can be evaluated and any incident of freelancing that is noted can be fine-tuned and reconciled to strive towards that tactically disciplined fireground. Crew integrity is imperative when operating on the fireground. There is a necessity for anyone operating within the IDLH to do so as a team and to maintain visual and voice communication with one another in that environment. On this particular incident, there were challenges with that. Part of that is because we have a safety officer model where we're pulling the officer from their crew to fill that role, as previously discussed in one of the other findings. But there were also issues with the truck crew becoming separated when the Mayday was declared. The RIT team did not deploy as a team due to other challenges. So accountability and crew integrity was a big component of this particular incident. In terms of recommendations, the after action review team recommends that right now we currently have a model in place with level 1 and level 2 accountability, and we should use that tool because that's what we have, and we should up the game and do level 2 accountability on any incident that involves an IDLH. Further, there are better ways to do accountability as evidenced by best practices in other fire departments, and it's the recommendation that the implementation team research that and perhaps come up with a better way to do accountability on the fireground. The other thing worth noting is the pre-entry accountability IDLH radio check, which is designed to make sure that SCBA and radio are connected, also is a helpful tool to ensure that you're on the right talk group, is an accountability piece with the announcement that you're making entry into the structure so everybody knows that tactical deployment and everybody is aware of what your mission is. On this particular incident, pair checks were not completed and they would have been helpful from an accountability perspective. It is worth noting that the committee recognizes that pair check bears similar resemblance to PAR and can get confusing. So we recommend that not only do we create as a fire department some kind of an accountability entry announcement tool, perhaps we change the name to minimize any confusion, and furthermore, that should be ingrained in our SOPs rather than just a safety bulletin. On this incident, there were a few cases of diminished situational awareness and some risk assessment challenges worth noting. From a risk assessment perspective, we have had the benefit of listening to Dan Madrikowski And one of the things that he stressed in one of the previous slides was the use of the thermal imager to identify the demarcation of the thermal layering within that large structure, which indicated a deep-seated ventilation-limited fire that should have played a role in the risk assessment component and development of the incident action plan. In terms of situational awareness, two examples resonate from the report. Number one, the fact that the rear of the structure had a two-story bump out, and many of the individuals who operated on the incident were not aware of that second level. That is a situational awareness challenge that we face on numerous buildings throughout the county. And the other thing worth noting is the confusion that occurred as the Mayday unfolded with indicators on people's helmets that caused some crews to be misidentified in terms of the apparatus to which they were assigned. So to that end, the committee recommends that risk assessment language be included in our tactical SOPs, specifically ones that in the future will correlate to the different types of occupancies and structures that we may encounter. Finally, the committee recommends that the implementation team review the availability and dependability of company identifiers on helmets and SCBA shoulder straps. On this incident, there were some issues with the transfer of command. Transfer of command is identified as an exchange of information that is very purposeful between the existing incident commander and the person assuming that role. Thereafter, a progress report should be announced and the transfer of command should be verbalized. On this particular incident, when a chief officer arrived, he got out of his vehicle and grabbed his handheld portable radio and started walking to locate the incident commander. During that particular move, critical radio transmissions were missed that significantly impacted the course of events on this particular fire. In addition to that, the use of a fixed command post is incredibly important to minimize distraction and to make sure that everyone knows the person in charge of the incident through whom the decision making is taking place. And finally, the air management software that is used in our fire department does have a challenge when one unit is turned on and another unit is turned on, and the second unit may be more proximal to the fire. Finally, from a command and control function perspective, it was noted that while some individuals had a tremendous amount of knowledge of the building and the geographic area, that information was used to deploy crews tactically. And we want to reinforce that tactical deployment should come at the direction of the incident commander. So to that end, the implementation team will work on the following as recommended by the after action review team. We want to create ongoing command competency training for all command officers, chief officers, and acting battalion chiefs to reinforce the concepts of transfer of command, in-car command, and fireground command and control. We recommend that the implementation team explore additional air management and accountability software and tools that are available that are used by other fire departments as a best practice to help maintain that control function. So Crew Resource Management, or CRM, came to us from the aviation industry and has changed the way we think and the way we operate. It's all about maximizing situational awareness and optimizing human performance to enhance safety of the team. On this particular incident, CRM played a major role in a few developments. First and foremost, during the interviews, it was identified that chief officers and safety officers who were responding to the incident were aware of some of the intricacies of what was occurring that the incident commander may not have been aware of. They chose not to pick the radio mic up to notify the incident commander of that because in Baltimore County, the culture has always been that a responding chief or safety officer does not inject tactical comments while en route. Additional components of CRM were demonstrated by the Side Charlie division supervisor who elected to go into the structure with his crew, by doing so minimizing the available situational awareness of viewing the entire back of the structure. And finally, dispatch did not identify the command engine, and that tactical assignment went unmet. The after-action review team therefore recommends the following. Implement a policy that provides the rules of engagement for a remote safety inject where if a responding chief or safety officer has actionable intelligence, they have the avenue to share that intelligence with the incident commander to help with their overall decision-making process and to maximize their human performance. In addition, it should be a policy where the command engine is announced in addition to the RIT company, so the responding units are aware that that is their specific job and that is the task that they must maintain from a tactical discipline perspective when they arrive on the scene. Finally, all of these concepts should be reinforced through regular command and competency. The Center for Disease Control recognizes that a significant number of firefighter fatalities are secondary to overexertion, stress, and medical emergencies. It was noted on this particular incident that one member who was very forthright and open offered that he felt that his level of fitness was not where it should be. Since this particular incident, the County Fire Department has partnered with a human performance specialist in an effort to make physical fitness a higher priority amongst the entire workforce, both career and volunteer, to minimize the risk associated with those medical line of duty fatalities. In terms of the recommendations from the After Action Review Team, we recommend that we continue to pursue bolstering that human performance specialist integration into our department and also explore the prospect of compliant NFPA 1582 physicals for all of the members. We should also currently work with our Baltimore County Volunteer Firefighters Association member companies to ensure that their level of fitness is where it needs to be for this physically demanding occupation.
It's important on size up to note the conditions that you experience. There were conditions indicative of a ventilation limited fire. What this tells incident command and the company officers is that any additional ventilation prior to effective suppression will make the fire grow, increase the hazard of the fire. In this case, we had steel bar joists, which were not fire protected, so any increase in heat release rate from the fire would result in a much more rapid time to potential collapse. The flow path was noted upon arrival, and then subsequently upon opening the door on side Charlie. Good information, appropriate tactics were followed. At the same time, there was an effort to cut holes in the roof. This is a bad move. Again, without effective water on the fire, additional ventilation will make the fire worse. It is important, however, to have eyes on the roof. Have someone in a tower ladder on an adjacent roof to understand what's going on the roof. Is it sagging? Is the fire burnt through the roof? To get information back to incident command. This incident demonstrates the importance of recognizing changes in conditions as ventilation is made or as operations continue, and the value of informing incident command about those changes that occur on the fire ground. It's always important to have discipline on the fire ground. And there were some great examples of that on this fire ground in that several people asked to break the front windows with the idea that you would let smoke out. Those requests were denied and discipline was in place that the front windows were not broken. This was good. In many cases, firefighters tend to think of a building as a bucket with water in it. And in this case, the building has smoke in it instead of water. And the analogy that the firefighters use is that if I make more holes in that bucket, the smoke will flow out of the bucket faster. The smoke will flow out of the building faster if I break more windows. This is incorrect. Inside the building is a chemical reaction that we call fire. When you have a ventilation-limited fire, what it needs is oxygen. It already has fuel in there. It already has heat in there, as evidenced by the thermal imaging camera. So if you're impacting that oxygen leg by breaking windows, cutting holes in the roof, and you have no control of the fire with suppression or effective water on the fire, that fire is going to get... And in this kind of situation where the fires had time to burn prior to firefighter arrival, it could increase in size and get bigger very rapidly. In addition, the steel bar joists are getting heated. Once they get to 700 or 800 degrees, they start to lose their strength. The baseline temperature of fire is around 1,100 degrees Fahrenheit. So if fire is impinging on those bar joists, they're going to lose their strength pretty quickly. There are two ways that it could cause a failure. One is metal expands when it heats, so it could push out the unreinforced masonry walls and cause a collapse, lose its structural integrity and sag and collapse in the middle, potentially pulling walls in with it. So ventilating a vent-limited fire and not coordinating that with effective water on the fire is a bad mistake. And we see it happen across the country. It's happened in cases where firefighters have died. In a strip mall fire in San Antonio, you can review the NIOSH report, and I think it speaks to the fact that we're lacking in how we teach firefighters about fire universally across the country. Because here we have a firefighter that is in a hot and smoky condition. So again, there's fuel and there's heat. And that firefighter is on the radio, and he knows his life is depending on this radio call, and what is he asking for? He's asking them to open it up. He's asking them to vent. That addition of oxygen will kill him, and yet that's what he's asking for. What should he be asking for? He should be asking for flowing water. We need to flow water. Flow water in here, cool it off so I can get out of here. You need to apply water on the fire to change the condition from a ventilation-limited fire to a fuel-controlled fire, and then ventilate. Then the ventilation will be effective and you'll get lift. If you're not controlling the heat release rate, you don't have any control over the fire. In a ventilation-limited fire condition, additional ventilation will make it worse. So some recommendations. Train your department. Learn about the difference between a fuel-controlled fire and a ventilation-limited fire. UL's Fire Safety Research Institute has many educational opportunities available to you for free, online 24/7, so you can learn about fire behavior, fire control, and the potential for roof and floor collapse. It's important that the division supervisor monitor the roof conditions. It's important that when crews are in position on the roof, waiting to vent or trying to vent, that they are able to be contacted and communicated with in case there's a need to evacuate them out of the building. And make sure that your department has the most up-to-date information to guide your SOPs in terms of coordination on the fireground, ventilation and suppression being coordinated together to make it the most effective.
Extensive research by the after-action review team identified that there was an approximate 10-minute delay from the first 911 call to the initial dispatch of units to this particular structure fire. As a result of this delay, the pre-alert was used as a tool somewhat informally across all different shifts of the fire department to make crews aware that a fire was going to be dispatched. As a result of that, units responded out of sequence, and in some cases, some units did not hear the ADO pre-alert at all and were dispatched later on into the incident. Baltimore County has transitioned to a new CAD software solution that does not use the early dispatch protocol, but uses determinants and priorities to ensure that a structure fire, such as the one we encountered at the Advanced Auto Parts, would be dispatched with the highest priority.
Due to several misunderstandings, mistransmissions, and a lack of coordinated strategy, the fire attack inside of the structure ceased when RIT entered. Additionally, although communication with the Mayday member was sufficient, the chain of command was not well established. The committee also noted, as Lieutenant Dennis recounted, that there was some delay in the declaration of the Mayday transmission. The committee recommends ongoing training to reinforce and practice the declaration of a Mayday, as well as ongoing training on managing a Mayday incident and ensuring ongoing fire attack during the rescue. It was obvious to the committee that there were some choppy radio transmissions made during crucial elements of the Mayday declaration and rescue. Lieutenant Dennis indicated that his facepiece seal was checked prior to entry. However, recordings from the incident indicate that the seal was poor or had become loose. The committee recommends that ongoing training occurs to ensure members are familiar with donning the facepiece properly, especially as it relates to Bluetooth transmissions. This should also be reinforced during annual fit testing. Although this incident ended with a positive outcome, the committee noted a number of issues related to the RIT deployment. One issue noted was the lack of availability and similarity with equipment carried by responding units. Many of the responding units do not carry RIT bags and as a result are unable to train regularly on their use. Additionally, the committee noted that there were several doors near the location of the Mayday member that were never accessed. The committee recommends a revision of SOPs to better define the RIT branch director and associated actions. Additionally, there should be an inventory and subsequent purchase to ensure that all units carry matching RIT equipment. This purchase is currently in progress. The committee also recommends ongoing training on the use of RIT equipment and softening of exits. The practicality of SCBA cylinder covers for RIT should also be explored. The committee noted that many of the applicable standard operating procedures related to this fire are outdated. Additionally, volunteer fire companies have little to no access to our procedures. Many of the crews responding to this incident did not comply with SOPs, which resulted in issues with communications, accountability, effective incident management principles, and a thorough risk assessment. The committee recommends that SOPs are prioritized and then revised or created as applicable. These revisions should include standard terminology and best practices from national standards. Additionally, broad access should be provided to SOPs for both career and volunteer members. The orange emergency activation button on our portable radios activates a feature called ruthless preemption that gives the user priority on the radio system. During interviews, Lieutenant Dennis stated that he did not depress his emergency activation button because he had not received regular training on its use. As we saw earlier in the videos, multiple attempts at making a transmission were prevented because he did not have his priority on the system. During the incident, there was also a mismatched guidance of whether units not involved with the Mayday operation should remain on the same talk group channel. The committee recommends that the department conduct training on the emergency button and incorporate it into ongoing RIT training. Additionally, the department should continue researching and testing features of the radio system. There should also be a coordination and reinforcement of SOPs for both field personnel and dispatch to ensure that the priority of maintaining all users on one restricted talk group during a Mayday operation is a best practice. After the Mayday was declared and RIT deployed, the dispatcher prompted units to change channels based on an inconsistent policy and understanding at the dispatch center. It was also noted that the announcement tone for the evacuation was short in duration, and that messages relayed by dispatch are sometimes not restated clearly or accurately, leading to confusion on incidents. The committee recommends that the department work with the dispatch center to review and revise policies so they match. Additionally, tactical checklists for dispatchers should be developed. Lastly, the capability for an incident commander to initiate an alert tone before making an announcement should be explored. Inconsistent terminology caused confusion that led to missteps on this incident. For example, the phrase "we got him" meaning the member was found versus being out of the structure. Additionally, the Mayday member was not prompted for lunar or other information to assist with his rescue. Other issues were noted with excessive airtime and difficulty in changing radio channels due to the organization of our radio fleet map. The committee recommends the department adopt best practices regarding Mayday language. Also, the department should review communications practices to ensure that radio traffic is purposeful and appropriate, especially on tactical talk groups. The department should also develop and provide training on a policy to address silent status updates via MDT computers. And lastly, the department should review and revise the radio fleet map to improve efficiency and ease of interoperability. A staging area was never designated on this incident. Although the large parking lot of the shopping center had adequate space, its proximity to the incident caused members to gravitate towards the scene without a full accountability of units that were committed or available. The committee recommends the department incorporate the concept of level 2 staging into training programs to reinforce a more disciplined and organized approach to deploying resources beyond the first alarm assignment. In the past, the department enforced existing policy requiring first due companies to conduct fire surveys of hazards in their districts. These were submitted to chief officers to be reviewed and compiled. This process has since fallen away from regular practice. The investigation revealed that there was no fire survey on record for this building. The committee recommends that the department research available software to provide a repository for real-time access to pre-plans and fire surveys. Additionally, target hazards should be identified, and those pre-plans should be completed and updated when necessary. The investigation into this incident, specifically the interviews with our members, revealed that our department dropped the ball when it came to taking care of our folks. Members involved in the initial alarm and the mayday continued to work at the scene after the mayday was resolved. This left them physically exhausted and mentally strained. There was an on-scene debriefing for officers, but not other members. There was also minimal follow-up from those in leadership positions and an overall hesitancy from the members in speaking with peer support due to its configuration. The committee recommends that the department ensure that a mechanism is in place to follow up with members that are impacted by critical high-stress incidents. The team commends the use of the newer command charts. Responding units also recognized hazards and fire conditions while they requested additional resources, including the hazmat assignment and second alarm. The Mayday member, rescuing members, incident commander, dispatcher, and other units on the call all remained calm while organizing the rescue efforts. The proper restriction of the talk group and initiation of the channel markers also led to discipline of radio transmissions during the rescue. The committee recommends that the department continue to reinforce training on hazardous materials resources, RIT competencies, and command competencies. These trainings should also incorporate fire dispatch when appropriate. Here's some more positive. The committee noted that radio communications from within the IDLH were remarkably clear, including instances where pass alarms were activated or saws were in use nearby. This is thanks to the Bluetooth technology integrated into our SCBA. The committee also noted that units beyond the first alarm assignment did well making transmissions on their divisional talk group per our SOP. After the mayday was declared, there was only one irrelevant transmission made on the command restricted talk group. Lastly, the committee noted that proper tactics also included the announcement of water supply, control of doors and windows, and a decision not to have the initial crew make entry until there was sufficient resources on scene. The committee recommends that the department continue to train and practice on the proper donning of SCBA and the use of the communications and Bluetooth system, including troubleshooting from within the IDLH. The department should also continue to reinforce the importance of coordinated ventilation, risk assessment, forcible entry, door control, and tactical SOP compliance through training. Lastly, the department should research and develop an SOP based upon best practices that outlines forcible entry methods and considerations. Some other positives noted by the committee, including our members' use of equipment. During this incident, the Mayday Lieutenant utilized indicators on his MSA SCBA heads-up display to identify and track his remaining air. This awareness led to his decision to pause, kneel down, and hold off on further self-rescue efforts to conserve air until RIT arrived. In another credit to our Bluetooth technology, receivers of his transmission never heard the pass alarm device that was going off in the background. Additionally, the committee noted that the location of RIT equipment on our apparatus is clearly marked by a reflective RIT sticker on the compartment. Recommendations to reinforce these items include the continuance of SCBA competency training and a quarterly training requirement for SCBA. The committee also recommends that annual inspections of equipment include an audit of RIT equipment to ensure it is accounted for and appropriately located on all apparatus. The department should also continue to reinforce regular RIT training competencies, including the proper use of the pass alarm. The committee recognized that the most significant factor contributing to the positive outcome of this incident was the Mayday lieutenant's ability to recognize that he was in trouble and initiate the Mayday. Additionally, the committee recognized that both the Mayday lieutenant and the RIT captain who came in after him remained remarkably calm throughout the incident. It was also noted that while no pre-plan was conducted of this target hazard, it was by chance that the RIT captain was a frequent customer of this business and was familiar with its layout. This knowledge provided him with the ability to quickly locate the Mayday lieutenant and render assistance, approximately 3 minutes and 22 seconds after the Mayday was declared. To reinforce these items, the committee recommends that the department continue to reinforce training on self-rescue, survival, and air management. High target hazards within the district should also be identified and visited by first due crews. And lastly, the committee recommends that pre-plans be completed and stored for easy access on incidents. The final strength noted by the committee, and the last finding in the report, is the readiness of EMS personnel at the scene of this incident. The medic unit on the call was properly positioned at the front of the building with their stretcher and equipment per our SOPs. Their actions helped ensure that they were ready to receive the Mayday lieutenant immediately when he was removed. The committee recommends the department continue to reinforce regular RIT training competencies, including the duties and responsibilities of EMS units at Mayday incidents.
So to the members of the Baltimore County Fire Department, there's about 170 pages here. And I think the call to order for all of us is to think about 3 C's, an easy way to remember what we need to do. We as an organization have to have courage. And I think the members that you had the opportunity to witness discussing the firsthand account of what happened already demonstrated that courage. And Chief Rund and the administration have demonstrated courage as well, and allowing us the opportunity to be completely open and transparent with the evaluation of this incident. In addition to courage, we need a commitment. I think our folks who gave their first person accounts summed it up perfectly. You know, in that dire situation, a game on their phone never helped them find their way out of that structure. It comes down to the training that they so importantly stress. So the commitment at all levels is needed, and what we need to do is change our culture. This document represents 30 minutes, but again, it will change the culture for the next 30 years. So we encourage you to read the report, not only read the report, but digest the report. Make sure that you understand everything that's going on here, and when you have questions, reach out. We're glad to take questions and explain anything related to the methodology. And again, we can't thank enough those who have supported us in this process. We do want to provide a personal thanks to the Baltimore County Public Library for allowing us the opportunity to use their technology and recording studio to deliver this product, because with their help, with the openness of Mike, the openness of Josh, and everybody's candor on that incident scene, we've identified the roadmap. We're going to deliver this to the implementation team. The implementation team is chaired by Captain Kurt Holloway from 18D and Captain Steve Stelmack from 55 Delta Shift, and they are going to be reaching out to you for help as we start working on that committed change of our culture for the next generations to come. Thank you very much.